Is democracy intolerant of dissent? Will the majority always try to impose their ideas on the minority to, quote-unquote, force them to be free? Is traditional monarchical government best and not the hubris of democracy? These and other questions will be answered right after this. I'm Professor Jerome Arkenberg, and I've been teaching a wide variety of history courses across this country for the past 30 years. In this video, I'm going to tell you about democracy and the tyranny of the majority, conservatism and the tyranny of the minority, and how democracy destroys intellectual authority. At the end, I'll have the wrap-up quote on this video. But first, make sure to click like, share, and especially subscribe, and that little bell thingy, so I can continue to bring you more great videos just like this one. The Reformation's violence and disruption destroyed medieval ways of governance and replaced it with absolutism, which then required justifying it to those whose power and privileges might or would be curtailed, if not eliminated outright. That is, the nobility, the merchants, the clergy, and the townspeople. Sir Walter Raleigh, born in 1552 and died in 1618, put forth the earliest justification for this new absolutism, basing it on the idea that monarchs rule their people just as fathers rule their children, the head rules the body, and of course, the Bible says so. In King Louis XIV's France, Jacques, Bishop Bossuet, who was born in 1627 and died in 1704, had similar ideas. Monarchs were given absolute power by God to advance the public interest and protect the weak. So, security followed from giving up all rights to a monarch. But the monarch must rule as both a benevolent and disinterested arbiter by following both the custom of the realm and God's law. For in the end, every ruler will be judged by God. This, of course, is not unusual. Similar justifications through history gave these God kings, as I call them, absolute power, but tried to restrict them from engaging in bad acts via religion. For example, too much bad karma, being sent straight to hell, being punished in hell, and overthrow of the king or the dynasty because the gods will it, and so forth. Edmund Burke, from 1729 to 1797, founded what can be called modern conservatism by condemning the French Revolution as an insult to tradition, since it tore down the entire ancestral order to replace it with something new, showing the hubris of liberalism. In other words, we know best. Burke thought the state was the result of an organic process of historical growth, comprised of customs, rules, and social mores that had worked, evolving and combining over the course of time into what he regarded as the best of all possible worlds. And we owe it to both our ancestors and our descendants to keep it going. As I put it, once chosen, forever frozen. The Frenchman Joseph de Maistre, born in 1753 and died in 1821, followed Burke in arguing that, as the state was an organic institution, it did not derive from any kind of social contract, and hence could not be altered by the imposition of new ideas, theories, or constitutions. Karl von Metternich, born in 1773 and died 1859, added that the only reason that men desire to change either their governments or their societies is due to the inherent selfishness and evil of man's nature. Man thinks he can do better than the laws and customs ordained for him by God. Further, liberalism and its ally individualism saps the virtues of civic life, then attacks and destroys all other aspects of tradition, as egoism takes over and then destroys both state and society. At least, so said Alexis de Tocqueville, who was born in 1805 and died, same as Metternich, in 1859. For, as he put it, individualism was, quote, a new expression, a deliberate and peaceful sentiment disposing each citizen to isolate himself from his fellows and draw apart with his family and friends, unquote, manifesting in heightened personal ambition and acquisitiveness, focusing on the material wealth of the individual as the only goal in life, instead of the good of the community. Worse, as the Frenchman François Guizot, 1787 to 1874, noted, liberalism promotes the idea that everyone, even the ignorant, illiterate, and mentally deficient, have the right to decide matters for themselves. Essentially, one idea is as good as the next. This results, he says, in ideas of intellectual equality, of extreme emphasis on individual worth and self-esteem, leading inevitably to general, simplistic, and faulty explanations of human affairs that demand little judgment and less thought, making society not better, but worse. For John Stuart Mill, 1806 to 1873, the solution to this inherent problem of democracy is not to cling to tradition, but instead to give extra weight to the votes of the educated classes, that the ignorant masses might not, even unwittingly, cause the destruction of the state, as had happened in ancient Athens and the Roman Republic. And Lord Acton, 1834 to 1902, noted, individualism and liberalism together inevitably lead to the tyranny of the majority. For if all opinions are inherently equal, then those held by the majority must be correct. Otherwise, why would so many hold those ideas? So, the majority, by law or popular disdain, will inevitably impose its ideas on the minority who oppose it, leading to a new kind of despotism and tyranny, more destructive of individual freedom than any monarchical or aristocratic system could ever be, a totalitarian state. On the other hand, Thomas Paine was born in 1737, died in 1809, writing in reply to Burke's diatribe on the evils of the French Revolution, said that while society was natural, government was not. It was artificial, perverting the natural course of social development. with monarchy being the absolute worst. Or hereditary government, he stated, is clearly worse since it is government by fraud. It relies on people's ignorance and superstition to keep itself in power. Further, it does not prevent war and violence, but causes and promotes war and violence, as that is the nobility's sole reason for existence, which is wholly irrational, as he said. So, every generation must decide for itself to keep, modify, or change the way it governs itself, as no generation has the right to force its ideas on posterity in perpetuity. So retaining them because we owe it to our ancestors is nonsense, because they themselves changed when life in the state of nature changed. The wrap-up quote. There never did, there never will, and there never can exist a parliament or any description of men or any generation of men in any country possessed of the right or the power of binding and controlling posterity to the end of time, or of commanding forever how the world shall be governed or who shall govern it. Every age and generation must be as free to act for itself in all cases as the age and generations which preceded it. It is the living and not the dead that are to be accommodated. Thomas Paine, 1795. Let me know what you think of this quote in the comment section below. Also, what you liked about this video, and what other historical topics or subjects you'd like to see in future videos. Be sure to click like, share, and especially subscribe, as it will help me bring you more great videos on this topic. And make sure to click on that little bell thingy so you'll know when the next History Waits for No One video is posted. If you want to know more, there are recommended studies on this topic in the description below, along with other ways to connect with me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the past.